Hello and welcome. I'm Reverend Yan, founder of Evolving Enneagram and the author of The Enneagram of the Soul, a 40-day spiritual companion for the 9 types.
And I'm Angela Joy, Evolving Enneagram faculty.
So, if you've been seeking a compassion based contemplative approach to Enneagram informed transformation, you are in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. So, we are in week 10 of a 12-week Sunday talk series based on the theme Evolving Toward a Unifying Vision. The specific theme for last week and this week is grounded presence and compassionate communication. Today's talk is titled Learning to Listen for Universal Needs. We'll take today's talk in 2 parts. In part 1, Angela will open with talking about universal needs versus personal strategies. All of this is informed by the work of Oren Jay Sofer. Then in part 2, I will offer an invitation to seeing life through the lens of needs and then give some examples that are Enneagram informed. And then Angela is going to sum it up at the end. So, ready? Let's begin.
Here in part one, we will discuss universal needs versus personal strategies. So, as we mentioned last week, Sofer tells us that everything we do to meet a need. Needs are the core values that motivate our actions. They are the root reasons for why we want what we want, and they are the real reasons behind our emotions, meaning that we feel positive emotions when our needs are met and negative ones when they aren't met or when they're threatened. Strategies, on the other hand, are specific attempts to meet our needs. They can be tied to a specific person, place, action, time, or object. The problem comes when we conflate these two. So, for example, several people might desire connection, which is a universal and legitimate human need, but they try to get their need met in different ways or by different strategies. A type 1 might seek connection by correcting their loved ones in an effort to improve their lives. A type 4 might seek connection by sharing their feelings in an effort to be validated and to be seen for who they really are, whereas a type 2 might actually seek connection by validating someone else's feelings. A type 5 might share some interesting tidbit they've been reading about that really excites them. All of these are strategies for getting their need for connection met, but they show up in very different ways. So, as you can see, there are infinitely diverse strategies to meet any one given need. I remember my poor ex husband. I could come up with a number of different strategies, like I need you to pick up your dirty clothes, or you don't care what I think, you never help me around the house, or you expect me to give you everything and give me nothing. One thing you will notice in strategies is a lot of times we talk in superlatives. What I really needed was equality and a sense that I mattered. But I just kept giving all 100 different strategies to try to get that need met, and it never seemed to work. Knowing what I know now, it would have been much simpler and probably more effective if I had led with my need for equality and the desire to matter. It wouldn't have ensured that my needs were met, but it would have created an opportunity for us to create scenarios that worked for both of us. In hindsight, we also had a power and control standoff. I was telling him exactly how and what to do as a type 8, and he was disengaging in order to maintain his own sense of autonomy as a type 9. So, how do we begin to apply these lessons in real time instead of in hindsight? First, we start by identifying what needs really are. Marshall Rosenberg, founder of the Center of Nonviolent Communication, created a list of universal human needs that continues to be built upon, and it includes categories like subsistence and security, freedom, connection, to matter, community, and meaning. We'll include a link in the caption with a partial list for your reference. In Chris Hewart's book, The Sacred Enneagram, Chris overlays Thomas Keating's three emotional programs of happiness, which he sees as our ego's core psychological needs. These three categories based on the three centers of intelligence. So, power, control, and autonomy needs, which are also found in Rosenberg's list, correlate with the 8, 9, and 1. Esteem and affection needs go with 2, 3, and 4. And then security, certainty, survival, those needs go with 5, 6, and 7. So, just to be clear, the Enneagram offers one map for understanding these needs. It is a major factor, but it's not the only one. Included in our type, we also have our instinctual stackings, our culture, and even our levels of development in integral theory, which we discussed a few weeks ago. All of these will impact whether we focus on certain needs over others. So, after getting a sense of the diversity of all these legitimate human needs, the next step is to train our attention through grounded practice to see past the strategies, our own and others, to the universal needs behind them. Because needs are both personal and universal. They're universal to the degree that they are shared by each and every human being. They are personal in that we each prioritize them differently and personally, intimately feel and experience their satisfaction or the lack thereof uniquely. So, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nian, who's going to share a practice to help us learn how to listen for our different but universal human needs. Nian?
Thank you, Angela. So again, even this practice comes from the work of Oren Jay Sofer. So I want to give credit where credit is due. But I want to first say that this deep listening that Angela is talking about is to me a sacred act. And those of you who have been trained as spiritual directors or companions or counselors know this, right? That we're not just listening literally to the words or even to the actions like that are happening right now, but we're listening deeply to encompass the whole, like the body language, and we're listening like for the heart and the soul of what is behind what is showing up or being expressed by anyone in any particular moment. And behind the surface, what nonviolent communication, compassionate communication is teaching is that behind the surface of the words or the behavior is something more universal, right? Our basic, legitimate human needs. In essence, our humanity is behind that, our shared humanity. As the theologian Paul Tillich has said, the first duty of love is to listen. And so, with that, I want to offer the practice taught by Oren Jay Sofer and then give you some Enneagram informed examples of listening more deeply behind outer behaviors or words to the needs behind them. So, the practice first, seeing life through the lens of needs, to familiarize yourself with this way of paying attention, dedicate a period of time, an hour, a day, or more, to practice viewing yourself and others through the lens of human needs. So as your day unfolds, consider what needs you are trying to meet with your choices. As you observe others, consider what matters to this person. What might be motivating them? Someone getting on a bus, agitated on a phone call, waving goodbye. What needs are they trying to meet? Then extend this inquiry to conversations that you overhear, coworkers chatting the news, and so on. Behind each statement, what matters? What might this person need? When is it easiest to identify possible needs? When is it more challenging? Notice the effect of attending to your own and others' experience in this way. Hmm. So now let's look at a few examples. Earlier, Angela already shared a few examples of applying this process, and we wanted to make sure we cover all the types. So for these examples, I'm going to indulge myself the liberty of quoting from this like awesome book that just came in the mail. Oh, wait. It's my book, The Enneagram of the Soul by Nguyen Vuong. So yes, my book has finally arrived and I'm so excited about it. And it so happens that there's a section that fits in with this week's teaching. So I'm going to offer you some of this straight out of pages 35 and 36 of the book, which talks about type is rooted in motivation, not behavior. And you might want to also pull out that list of needs that Angela was talking about that we'll put in the captions. Um, that way you can follow along and kind of explore and think about like what needs you think are coming into play that maybe I didn't mention, right? So from the book. Enneagram type is based on our core motivation and not on our behavior. To illustrate, two individuals might work hard to become successful CEOs of Fortune 500 companies for quite distinct reasons. For instance, an 8 might seek the position to maintain a sense of power, dominion, or autonomy, or perhaps to create a big impact while not letting others control or impact them. Deeper down, they might come to realize they are protecting a part of themselves that feels innocent and vulnerable in the context of a world that appears harsh and that crushes the weak. So check your list of needs and then consider. For me, some of the needs I identified here is the need for power, dominion, and autonomy, but also deeper, the need to protect themselves from protect themselves and the vulnerable part of their own beings, right, from others. So just being aware of that. Imagine if you're able to listen beneath any of the bravado that can often be associated with eights, right? To sense into this vulnerable, sweet humanity behind it. And now to be clear, just like listening for this need doesn't mean that like if you have a tyrannical boss that you don't have to like tolerate abusive behavior, but it's more that when we begin to recognize like strategies like aggression or something that we might disagree with, if we can recognize a strategy without demonizing the person because we can sense the humanity beneath it, this is the foundation for a more unified life where we're seeing other people truly beholding the humanity and even the divinity in them. Yeah. So, in contrast, same situation. A 3, on the other hand, might seek the same CEO role to feel accomplished, gain a sense of worth, or elicit respect and admiration. When deeper down, they might come to realize their efforts to curate image and garner prestige are attempts to feel valuable because they do not feel they are worthy by being their genuine selves. Sometimes they don't realize this, but we might have the capacity to listen deeply enough to realize it about them, and thus again, see their tender humanity, even when they can't, right? So take a moment. What needs are you seeing behind that exterior striving to be the CEO? I see the need, pretty obvious, for approval and esteem. And I also see at a deeper level the need for meaning, the need for a sense of self, which is a legitimate human need to have a sense of selfhood, right? The need to matter. And so those are just examples of things you might sense beneath the surface of outer expressions that maybe you don't necessarily connect with, strategies that you might not connect with. So In contrast, we might see, and this is not in the book, this is an add-on, we might see another strategy, like what seems like completely irrational to some, but like opposite strategy of those who might be offered a promotion, but they don't want to be CEO, right? On the surface, depending on who you are, you might be like, that's crazy. Why wouldn't they want that added money and that promotion? Or you might be like, oh yes, that person is so humble. They don't want that job. And so we project, like what's happening based on our own perspective. But let's take a look at a six and what we might see beneath that. We might consider that if we look behind what's happening, if a six is rejecting that position, maybe there's something about the danger of being in the limelight. The many sixes feel that a target when they're in positions of power on the stage. And so maybe actually what's behind that is a need for safety and security. And then maybe even deeper, maybe a need, because sixes tend to believe in the power of teamwork, collaboration, that there's a need for belonging, that a lot of times when you become the leaders, you don't get to do that, right? And so just recognizing that that can be behind it and feeling behind it. And then in contrast, a seven might reject the same position, but maybe for like the need to want to keep options open for positive experiences, right? And so beneath that, like at the core, there's a need for perhaps freedom, or the need for, and this is a legitimate need, the need for play, the need for pleasure, human needs, right? And so going back to the book, The Enneagram of Soul, uh, I also write, different people can step up to help their favorite Enneagram teacher at a workshop for very different reasons. I watch this happen. So a nine might do it because they have merged with their teacher or class and might enjoy participating in a sense of shared mission and purpose. And alternatively, they might be sensing a disturbance in the room that they instinctively seek to remedy so they can feel more at ease. Then deeper down, a nine might come to realize that behind wanting to feel comfortable or peaceful is a fear of confronting their existence, a fear that their personal existence does not matter. So, again, you might explore for yourself what needs might be present here. What I see is maybe perhaps a need for harmony, but then even below that is this need to matter. Yeah. That's often even disowned or unconscious in the nines. Then a two in the same situation, you might see this two doing the same thing, helping the teacher. A two might proactively help their teacher even before asking whether help is needed because they want their support to stand out, please, and to win them favor with the teacher. Deeper down, they might come to realize that behind the need to help is the fear that if they are not needed, they will be unloved, rejected, and abandoned. Hmm. So, what needs do you sense are present here? I sense probably the need for sharing, the need for connection, the need for confirmation. All of these are part of the list of universal human needs. All of the needs that I have listed, and then some. So reviewing that list can be very important, but just recognizing that for yourself and for others, we're talking about universal and legitimate human needs to have. Just by virtue of being human, we have these needs, right? And recognizing that we, depending on type and many other factors, as Angela shared, we focus on some needs more than others. We can think about this idea that our strategies are very specific and personal, unique, even to the situation, right? The situation at hand. And a lot of times, though, what we see when we look at other people, when we listen to other people, we're looking and listening at their strategy. And when we disagree with their strategy, we can tend to dehumanize them. We disagree, that's the wrong way to go about doing this. And then we sort of cancel them out, right? But even if we disagree with their strategies, the way they go about doing this, if we can listen behind the strategy, if we can learn to listen deeply, we can sense their shared humanity, right? To see that universality within that difference. And of course, this is the foundation. Even before we talk about communication, this is the starting point for compassionate relating or compassionate communication, even and especially when we disagree on strategies. So, with that, I'll invite Angela to sum it up for us.
So, in conclusion, as Sofer says, conflict generally occurs at the level of our strategies, how we try to get what we want. The more deeply we are able to identify our needs, the why we want what we want, the less conflict there is. We can begin to feel it as a value within, whether or not it's fulfilled, especially when we touch into this more universal dimension of our needs. And he says, to listen to needs in a conflict is like gaining a window into another's world. We see their humanity. Of course, it's always best to begin practicing looking and listening for these needs before conflict. So then we have that skill built that when we are in conflict, we can access it. So as we explore today, we can, number one, begin to develop a vocabulary for universal human needs. Number two, we can slow down, be intentional, and cultivate grounded presence. And number three, from grounded presence, we can pay closer attention, listening more deeply to ourselves and to others, to better attune to the needs and thus our shared humanity behind our different strategies. With that, namaste.
Namaste. See you next week.